Hi everyone, this is Karen Whooley, and I'm here to do a video on the V-knit stitch that you will see in my pattern, My Favorite Hat. So I wanted to just give you a small little swatch here to show you how the stitches worked. And if you read the pattern, the first thing that happens is you crochet a foundation single crochet, and I've done that already here. There's 10 stitches, and I figured most of you probably know how to do that, but if you don't, check for another video coming soon about how to do the foundation single crochet. But in the meantime, let's go ahead and start the first row of the V-knit stitch. So we're going to take my hook, and I've done, like I said, 10 stitches here. I'm going to chain one and turn. Now normally with a single crochet you would work in the first stitch, but for this particular pattern you don't work in that first stitch. You go to the second stitch, and that's this guy right here. And to work the V-knit stitch you have to know a little bit about the anatomy of a single crochet. And a single crochet has the 2 loops on top, and then on the back side there is this ridge right here. And I'm gonna try to get that on my hook here really fast to loosen it up here. But that's the back ridge or the back bump. Some people call it the back loop of the stitch. I'm just gonna tell you that's the loop that you need to work into. So to do the V-knit stitch, skip the first stitch, you go to the second stitch, and you're gonna go underneath that loop, and then you're gonna go underneath both parts of the chain on top. So that's 3 loops that you have on your hook plus the loop that you originally had. You're going to yarn over and pull through just like you would for a single crochet through the top of the stitch and that back bump. And then you'll have 2 loops like a single crochet. You yarn over and pull through 2, and there's your single crochet. So you can kind of see that there's a single crochet, but we're going to do that all the way across. So here's that back ridge. I use my fingernail to get underneath it, and then underneath the 2 on the top, yarn over, pull through everything except for that second loop there, and there's 2 loops. Finish the single crochet. So we're going to do that. Here's number 3. And here's number 4 under the loop. Sometimes it does get a little tight, so what I recommend is make sure you're using a large enough hook and you're getting gauge. Of course, for a hat you need to make sure you have gauge, but you also want to keep your stitches a little loose so this back bump here is easy to get your hook underneath. And if you have a hook that you like that has a little sharper point at the top of the bowl of the hook here, you might want to try that out too, because I noticed that sometimes, it's just depending on what kind of yarn you're using, you may have trouble getting in to that bump, and the sharp tip of the hook will help with that, getting underneath those, especially those tight ones. So we're almost to the end of the row. Let's see here. Okay, so there's 2 more, I think. Yes, 2 more. Sometimes this first row when you're doing working in the foundation singles, the back side looks a little different on the ends. So I always have to check to be sure that I did do a final stitch. So let's count these first. So I skipped the first one, so there should be 9 total. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. So I did actually do all 9 stitches because I skipped that first one here. So then when I go to, you have to have 10 stitches in this case. Whatever size of the pattern you are doing, you need to make sure that you have the right number of stitches at the end. So by skipping that first one, we have to make it up for the last one. In this case, it's number 10. So right here is the turning chain that I did before I started the foundation chain, or the foundation single crochet, I should say. And what you want to do is you want to work just a regular single crochet into that chain. And sometimes it's hard to do, but you want to just get in there as best you can. You'll see that I kind of caught 2 loops, which is ideal for this. So I see there's a hole right there. That's where I went in to do the single crochet. But then you chain, or you finish the single crochet as normal, and then you chain 1 and turn, and you do the same thing. Now that chain 1, even though it doesn't count as a stitch normally, because of how we work this stitch, we don't work in the first one, we only go to the second one, or we start in the second one, I should say, and work the single crochets underneath those back bumps or back ridges and under the loops. But when you get to the end of the row, the single crochet, or that single chain that we use as a turning chain for single crochet, actually becomes part of the stitches. So I'm going to do a second row here just so that you can see in a better way how this all comes together. And always make sure, when you're first learning this stitch, you always want to make sure that you get that ridge or the back bump and then the 2 parts of the chain on your hook before you yarn over and pull through. If you forget one of those parts of the chain, you're going to get a ridge where you don't want one, because this stitch looks like stockinette when we're done. So, and actually I'm going to show you that as soon as I finish this row. I need some more yarn here. So under the bump, under the 2 parts of the chain, pull through all 3 of those, yarn over, pull through. Underneath a bump, underneath the stitch, and then finish the single crochet. So now we're at the edge of the row. So here you can see right here there's a hole forming. That's the chain 1 I did before I started the row that I completed before. So I just go into that hole and pull up a loop, yarn over, and pull through both to finish the single crochet. Then I would chain 2 and chain 1. I was working on a project earlier where I was chaining 2, so I apologize for that. Okay, so far, if you look at this really closely, here's the V stitches. Do you see how it's starting to look like stockinette? Now I'm going to pull out the hat here really fast for you. I have it here on my desk. And you can see that as you continue, you're going to get that stockinette look here. It's a little harder to see on the solid color. The variegated and speckles helps. And I'm going to do one more row here just so you can see. Now other people will ask me, well, why don't you just go through the V of the single crochet? And I'll show you that after I finish the stitch. And the reason I don't is because, I mean, you can use that stitch if you wanted to, but it doesn't give it as much cushion. By going through all 3 of those loops, it adds some extra yarn underneath the stitch, and it gives us this fabric that's a lot softer and a lot cushier. So that's why I don't do it that way, but you can see now here, see how the stockinette is starting to form. It looks like knitted stockinette stitches. So I'm just going to finish this row. See, that one got tight. There we go. And then underneath. And you could certainly go through the V of the single crochet. If you look at the V of the single crochet, here's the hat of the stitch or the chain on top, and then there's the V underneath it. You could literally just go through that. You'd have to go through the back side on this row like that to get through the V. But it's not as, it doesn't drape as well. It's a little more firm, this stitch. You still get a lot of drape with it. You can see I'm using worsted weight wool with a size J crochet hook. And you can see, I mean, just looking at it, how it's only 10 stitches, but see how it wants to fall. That's the drape of the fabric. So it has movement. So there we go. And let me do a couple more. And we'll do that last stitch so you can see it. Okay, there's the last actual V-knit stitch. And then here, it's not as large, but there's the hole at the end of the row. That's where I go in with my hook and just do a regular single crochet. And there's three rows of the V-knit stitch with a foundation single crochet row at the bottom. So that's all there is to it. I hope you enjoyed it. If you have any questions for me, don't hesitate to use the contact form here on my website, and we will get you squared away. Talk to you soon. Thanks so much, everyone.